Hello and welcome to another replay analysis. Today we're going to be looking at Eural once again and his third replay review. Let's get started. I got it on his view. Let's see, sounds. We'll set it there. Alright, let's speed it up. See what's going on in this game. Actually, I want me to do fast mode to begin with. Tell he's not like fudging anything here. Well, he's got a lot of wind turbines. It looks like he opened with pure wind instead of having starting with the solar. Personally, I like to start with the solar on this map just because the winds can dip rather low and the maximum's not terribly high. So I think it's nice to start that way, just so you don't have to build so many wind turbines to start with. Oh wow, very early solar storage. I mean, since he's pure wind, it makes a little bit more sense. Personally, I'd wait just a little bit longer before getting this, just because it does have that metal cost, and I'd rather be pumping out my constructors to grab those mechs sooner. Also notes in this position, there is a water mechs, and eventually you're going to want to grab those. For now, it looks like just sticking with the land constructors. And he's moving out yet? Nope. One more constructor, maybe? I like to see that he's grabbing the mechs rather quickly. He's already starting on more winds, because the wind can get quite low on this map. 14 is not a huge high, but I mean 10.5 is better than Star Watcher in terms of the average. But yeah, okay, so already I'm missing a little bit of the action. Apparently so is Eural. I believe his units were just kind of stopped here. Let's see, yeah. Okay, now he's moving them. Yeah, personally, I'm not a huge fan of something like that. I mean, it's good to have a spotter, but to me, if you're going to build 4 of them, or more, or, you know, if you build more than 1 or 2, then they should definitely try to do something. Like, having them all spot in one location is not really going to do much. So to me, like, just sending one out this way, or maybe even just sending one somewhere and then having 3 or 4 or whatever follow behind so that the opponent chases 1 while your 3 just sneak in and get some mexes and stuff. I mean, I just feel like that might be a reasonable play, but that's just me brainstorming here. I don't really do a lot of scouts, but yeah, I know that these should, if you're going to produce them, you should try to use them a little bit more than what I saw there. So he's looking around a little bit still. Okay, he's coming back, it looks like. Okay. So there's that beaver, that amphibious constructor to get that's water mechs. A couple of scouts here poking at his mexes. Yeah, one of the other things that you can do with early scouts, I mean, yes, it's nice to, well, first of all, scout and see what's going on, see where your opponent's at, how far the commander's pushed up. But if you're not going to use them beyond that and you still have them, you could potentially use them to help defend, you know, so you don't lose this max. Otherwise, it seems like Eural's going for a more greedy opener with a lot of cons, no blitzes, and just going straight into, you know, stouts, shell shockers, and whistlers. So personally, I like to open with a couple blitzes just to have for stuff like this, because these can be very annoying. Now, luckily, they didn't like drive in the back here. They didn't really, you know, they didn't really get much done. It was just the 1 mechs, so it wasn't too bad. Yeah, the beaver's going back there to get some stuff. Metal and stuff still looks okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I would maybe even build another con here. It sounds kind of crazy, but like, to me, I feel like I always want 1 con on the plants, just because, you know, 100 build power is not very much on the vehicle plant. So having a constructor that adds another 90, effectively nearly doubling it, is very good, in my opinion. But yeah, let's see, Com is still pushing up. Still adding on those wins. Okay, so here's something that I think a lot of people struggle with a little bit. In fact, it's like the math is, on the fly, it's kind of hard to do, so you kind of just need to remember. I don't remember, so I'm actually going to cheat and look at my own notes here. Let's see the spreadsheet. All right, so tide power is 15. In order for Armada tide to be better than the wind in terms of metal cost, this is all in terms of metal cost. The wind average has to be at least 6.2, and we already know it's 10.5. You can figure this out with some math, but it's kind of annoying to do like during the game. So I don't think anyone would be expected to do it during the game. But yeah, I just have a spreadsheet I use for it to calculate it out. But yeah, tide. I mean, wind is better in terms of metal cost, but tide is going to be better than solar because solar is very, very inefficient. So if you're looking for some stability, the tide is quite nice. Even at 15, it's like, it's not the best at 15, but it's okay. Let me see here really quick. So 5. Oh, and 6. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the tide is definitely going to be better than solar. I wanted to make sure because 15 is, I'm used to it being at, around 20-ish. So anyway, Stout's coming out. Stout's Shell Shockers, Whistlers. Okay, so that's going to be his core, Eural's core army group here. Even has another Beaver queued up. I don't know why you'd need two, but... oh, did he just cancel it? Yeah, okay. That might have been a misclick or something. Alright, so here metal's starting to rise a little bit. Okay, and he's adding on a construction turret. Personally, I know, like, I used to have this debate with people of, like, do you get... I wonder if the music's a little loud. It might be. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. But I used to have this debate of, is it better to get a bunch more cons to use as build power or construction turrets? And I would say that the construction turret, of course, is more efficient in terms of metal cost. But construction vehicles, like adding on a bunch of them kind of helps you do it, helps you build on build power in smaller chunks. So if you don't need a whopping, plus 200 build power, adding on a single extra constructor can help a lot, and giving it about half. And then the constructor also has an added benefit of providing a little bit of energy. So this constructor provides plus 10. And then later on, you can use the constructor for mobile build power and stuff. Now, arguably, there isn't a lot of places to use, mobile build power at the moment. I mean, on this map, like in an 8-player map, it's more of like in a 1v1. There's a lot of mechs everywhere. Your constructors out there might die. It makes more sense to get more constructors in that case. But personally, I still like, in this situation, I still like to add on some more constructors before this construction turret, just so I can produce it faster. Because this is, it's a long time for it to be built while there is no extra build power on the lab. So now the metal is going to start rising. Now with this construction turret, once it's done, the metal might start draining. It probably will, assuming that... Okay, never mind. I was going to say, assuming that he puts this constructor back on the lab, but he's building some wins afterwards instead. He's actually... Well, he's got one converter. I would say, don't go crazy with the converters because the wind's not crazy good or anything like that, but one's okay for sure. Okay, so that... Yeah, so that... construction turret's helping build some of this wind and helping out these units a bit, and it's enough to drain the metal a little bit, so it's not too bad. It's not too bad. And then this constructor out here is building another construction turret in order to assist building around here and repairing and whatnot. So it's nice to have some construction turrets up front. But yeah, the first Shell Shocker, Whistler, and Stout is out, and his opponent here already has quite a bit. So this is this is something to be careful of. Like trying to figure out the timings of when to produce, constructors and construction turrets, and like adding on like stuff that it's going to help you out in the long run, but at the moment might eat up a lot of the build power and or metal and or energy that could potentially make you produce units slower. And if you produce units slower, then all of a sudden, if they keep producing, then their army gets rather large. And this is starting to look rather large. There's plenty of medium tanks here. Of course, I don't know what all the other dots are, but it can end up being a lot. Especially since the guy that's helping you with this lane is, he's got only pawns here. And he's got this gauntlet, which is going to make this annoying, but it also means he spends a ton of metal on this that is good for its longer range, but if the units actually engage, it's not very strong. So like this isn't going to help hold the position. It's just going to be annoying for units that are all the way out here. So to me, if I'm in their position and if I see a gauntlet shooting me, I know that they have less units to defend, and it's just a gauntlet. And maybe it's some laser towers and stuff too, but that means that I can build up a sizable, say like, Janus and Stout Ball, which is kind of what they have here, it looks like, to just run this over. Now, and considering you don't have very much right now, this looks very, very dangerous to me. And that has a lot to do with, how you opened, basically. Like your energy is actually quite low right now because of the lower winds. But yeah, just like because of that opening with the construction turret, and if you're pure wind on a lower-ish wind map, it takes a lot of wind to actually get enough energy. So you're probably going to want more guys getting energy. So I'm glad to see that you're adding on some more turbines here as well. But yeah, just like another constructor, I feel would help out a lot. Either to build more winds or to help build, the construction turrets faster. Just having more build power that's mobile to build, whatever it is you need. And again, the construction turret's stationary, so you can't really do too much with it. Personally, I feel like this is a mistake by Tips here. Because of this gauntlet, like the gauntlet can shoot it first of all. Secondly, it makes it so that you have less units, so that you can't push this as easily. So this becomes harder to push. And also, I don't know if he knows this, but Eural, already has artillery, and if I see that I'm up against vehicles, I would not bother with this, just because the artillery can outrange it. So like, they can just take damage on it. Or put damage on it, I should say. Let's look back at the base. Looks like energy's a little bit better. I guess just like building that construction turret and stuff. Beaver's coming out, getting some more. Oh, okay. I like this idea. I mean, it's kind of a weird, for some this might seem like a weird idea. And in fact, to me, like, if you can, I don't know. I don't know how you would do this on this map, but I was just thinking, like, personally, I'd prefer, if possible, to use these same construction turrets that are back at base to do it. Building on 2 more just means you're spending more money on it and stuff, and you don't necessarily have the resources to do so. Yeah, I wonder if he's going to continue with this idea or not. Things can change. It is, I mean, I should also preface, like, I like the idea in general. Given the situation, I don't know if I think it's a good idea. Simply because this is a strong force. Your ally doesn't have a ton here. Again, Gauntlet, making him weaker, like a lot of metal is spent on here. And then you just don't have a lot of stuff here either. So it's it might be a little rough if you continue with this. But yeah, for now, just still producing tanks. Commander. Oh, okay. So you're just getting some wrecks. You have some more tanks up here. Actually, I didn't even see these. So it looks like you were just kind of helping out up here a little bit. Yeah, you got yellow and tan here that are fighting, and you're just kind of trying to. I assume you're just like trying to push the odds into their favor so that they can push harder later, or push hard, I guess, in general. But yeah, just gotta be careful here, because this is a sizable force. Now again, like, there's different players, some players are more aggressive than others. Some might see the gauntlet and say like, oh, I'm gonna stay away from that, and then others will be like, oh, like me, and say like, oh, there's a gauntlet, that's easy pickings if I run in there with some medium tanks or something. Because yeah, let's see, how expensive are they? I forget. Okay, so for Armada it's only 1250. I think it's 1300 for Cortex. But yeah, just like, it's a lot of metal. It's quite a few units that he doesn't have because of it. Looks like he's going vehicles off that. Are you still going with this? Okay, so you're still producing that construction turret. Your metal's actually starting to. Oh, you sold the lab. Okay, I didn't. Yeah, lab's gone. So yeah, that's definitely the thing. Is like, you sell the lab, try to get this, and it's of course making your front weaker. And at the same time, you're showing up here, and you're kind of hoping that this player does not notice. And he did notice. He sees you going up there, so now he's like, oh, his units are up at the top. I can go capitalize on that. And of course in lower, lower rooms, this probably wouldn't, or this probably would work. But in these upper levels, the the weakest player is 27, which is pretty high. Second weakest is 30. You can expect them to notice things like that, which might not always be the case. Of course, there's people that are, have gotten more OS than they really. It's like they have like, say like 32 or 35 or whatever OS, but they're not really quite that good yet. It takes a minute to get used to, so they got to earn their keep. But anyways, yeah, so you pull back to defend that. Okay, looks okay. Okay, so you start T2. Okay, so you did cancel that. I mean, I like the idea in general, but in order for that to work, this has to be safer than it is. And again, two players here, and one of them has quite a few tanks. But if both of them were just as strong, imagine if light blue here, or imagine if this color here had the same number of tanks and stuff as light blue. All of a sudden, this is not nearly enough. But luckily there is some parity here. He doesn't have that much. He spent on this HLT. And you really only have to worry about this guy. But at the same time, your ally doesn't really have that much either. So these two are very similar. And you at least need to match this guy. And you somewhat are, but, again, there's, it's just a little bit of weakness here. But yeah, you decided to go T2 because they're, you saw that they were trying to be aggressive, but they're not trying to push anything, but they're not like overly aggressive. They're being careful with what they're doing. So you get T2. It seems like I'd say an okay time. You got the energy for it this time. Obviously your metal income's not going to grow unless you get T2. But yeah, this is looking a little scary. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I suppose like, medium tanks, since they don't turn very well, Commander can get some nice D guns, so like it is a little bit safer because of that. And at the same time, you guys both have jammers, so they don't exactly know what you have. You know, so in a way, it's a bluff. You know, it's like I don't think, you know that I, have this. Well, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say like it's not like he has like a ton of extra units or anything. It's just a little bit extra. So I don't know. It's working out okay. It's working out okay. So already you're sharing a T2 with yellow, so that's nice of you. Yellow's doing quite nice, so this is, they're doing well up top. So if you could help them grow faster or do better, that's good. I think that's a good choice to give it to them instead of to like I wouldn't give it to, well, I mean, I would want to give it to red, but I would say in this position red's not doing as good as yellow is at top, so you can make them do even better. Yep, even sharing a couple of consoles. Nice. So here's another T2 for the other guy. Yeah, so I like this a lot actually. You're kind of capitalizing on the idea that these guys are not going to push you. Now if they were a little bit more aggressive, again, like this could be trouble. This could be trouble. But yeah, I guess I'm going around in circles a lot right now, but like to me this is, I don't know, it's a little dicey. Because they could potentially just run through, like literally run through. If they dodge the commanders and stuff, obviously you can't just like actually run through, but you know what I mean. So yeah, doing some nice sharing, getting your own T2 going. And this is a lot that you're producing out of here before selling it. Nice scouting. This guy here. Okay, so now this looks very scary. This is definitely this is definitely a scary moment. Okay, so you walk up with your comm. You D-gun there. Okay, so I would have just like, I mean, you walk up to that many tanks and your commander is going to die. Like period. Like this guy's for sure, he's toast. All right, this is just a lot. There's a lot to like not die from. So if you're going to do something like that, I would advise to, don't just walk up to the few tanks here and D-gun them. Like walk all the way up and explode. Yeah, walk all the way up and then D-gun and shit. Because then you could have gotten way more with that. I mean, I suppose there's the whole thing of like, they probably have a radar, they could probably see the blip, they're probably all gonna fire on the blip. And even if some of those shots are going to miss, like, the commander is eventually gonna die, and they might realize that it is a commander and start pulling their army off of it, like, just away, so that when you explode, it kills less of their stuff. I guess my point is, given that he's walking up to the army alone anyways, he's going to explode, in general. So you might as well go a little bit further. I guess the only time not, like, there might be a time when you see them, like, starting to pull back, and your commander's not going to die, like, by the time they get out of range. Then I guess, yeah, it would be a good time to de-gun or decloak or whatever, just so you explode sooner. So they all attack the commander and explode the commander. I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if that was going through your head. I didn't quite see exactly what happened, but I guess just looking at the different scenarios here of what possibly could have happened. And yeah. Oh, and the other thing is, I keep mentioning like how many units this has been and stuff. and how few you had, and at first you were you were okay, but the thing is, if you go T2 and he doesn't and adds on units, then all of a sudden you're not okay because there's not enough units for you to defend with. And I would say especially hard because your ally here has invested a lot here. You've invested quite a bit here as well, but with the lab and everything, like that's even more. You've both invested a ton here. Uh, and an HLT is not really going to keep this at bay. Like I would actually say a few beamers would do a better job. Yeah, two beamers would be cheaper than one HLT, um, and just do more damage because let's see what that again. DPS 160, HLT 160, or no, I'm sorry, that's Sentry. Beamer 266 DPS and HLT 215. So each beamer is more DPS than one HLT. Um, and HLT is okay it has more range, so they can keep them at bay a little bit more. To me, it works against weaker players that might see the HLT and say, "Oh, it's a big bad laser tower. I'm not going to engage with it." But at these levels, HLT is not going to scare anybody, or at least it shouldn't. Just like this gauntlet shouldn't really scare anybody. So the more to me, if I were them, if I saw the HLT, I don't know if they did or not. They knew about the gauntlet, obviously, but the more heavy defense like that, HLTs and gauntlets that I see, the more I'm like, oh, okay, they spent heavily into these things. That means they're not units, which means I have the unit advantage, and I have a higher possibility of actually destroying the location. Now, again, gauntlets and HLTs, they have their range, um, you know, and they can be a nuisance. But if I'm on their side, as long as I stay out of that range until it's time for me to attack, I will feel okay about it. Um, what else was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say that's these guys here have done a great job. Um, was it Tips and Shato? They've done a great job of poking. Um, I can't really tell which is which. Actually, it should be Shizato. Um, has done an exceptional, or has done a really good job with poking with his tanks, just like moving in, circling around, coming back out, moving in, circling around, coming back out, and that way he has like an idea of what your defenses actually look like. So he's been testing the waters actually for quite a while. Um, so again, what would I do differently in this situation? I think I would have not gotten this HLT. Dragon's Claw to me is fine. It's got pretty good DPS. It's a lightning, and it can take a hit because it's the pop up. And it's kind of expensive, but a little bit more worth it in my opinion than the HLT. Um, so yeah, like in a way to me, the HLT is bait. Like baits the enemy into attacking, and then all of a sudden these pop-ups show up. I mean, I guess I'm talking more from my experience. I've seen the HLT, and then I've been like, oh, okay, I can go in there, and then I go in there and I see a bunch of or at least a pair of Dragon Claws, and I still do fine in the battle, but the Dragon Claws definitely make it a lot harder. So to me, not a terrible investment. Um, I don't know why you're building this up here. To me, this should not be up here. The storage should definitely not be at the front. It should be in the back. Um, just because you're probably gonna lose this now. Um, one of the other things that I've seen people do a lot is they put their T2 up front. Like put it up here or something. I don't know why the drawing tool is doing that. Say like put it here or put it up here. Um, just to get the tanks out and at the front sooner. Why does it keep doing that? That's weird. Um, while that can be nice to get your T2 out at the front sooner, it's also risky because it puts more investments in this zone. Again, your ally has invested their vehicle plants up here, so I just feel like, at least to me, in my opinion, it's a very risky endeavor. You want to do it maybe if you know that you're winning the lane, that you know that you're doing well in the lane and are pushing through. Like, to me, it would make sense to put this here if you were already like right here. You can just like keep pushing and pushing and pushing, a lot sooner. Um, but yeah, I guess all I'm just trying to say is I'm glad you put it in the back because it's less safe up front. Um, I don't know why I went on so long about that, but yeah. So yeah, your ally dies, blows up his base. Fortunately, it doesn't blow up your base much. His gauntlet's actually still alive, crazy. But yeah, your ally's in some rough shape. So you sell your T2 lab. What are you doing with the money? Upgrading mexes. Yeah, so while the lab is disappearing, um, is when you want to consider, like, do I need the lab or not? And obviously, you got a console, you know what's up with building hounds and stuff with it, so like it's still okay for sure. Um, but yeah, I would just say that while it's good that you still sold the lab, I would have tried to see this ball of units sooner and realize that he's poised to attack. He's looking like he's moving around, he's testing the waters a lot. I should maybe get a couple hounds sooner. Um, and while it was nice to give T2 to everybody, that might have been a better play than what I'm talking about actually, uh, but it did set you back a lot. Like, all your mexes are really far behind because of it. Um, you didn't be able, you weren't able to sell the lab you know until just now, and now you're finally producing hounds. But given the situation with this guy here poking so much, I would have considered um, maybe doing a few less for your allies and just getting the what's it called? Selling the lab sooner and starting to produce hounds sooner. And while I like this forward position with the console, um, given the situation of this being such a strong attack, I would have probably tried to do it back at home actually. Um, just because, like, luckily for you, he's ignoring you. But if he didn't, then all this is toast, right? So that if that puts you in a bad spot, then all of a sudden your console's dead, your lab's dead, and you're gonna have to rebuild the lab to even get a unit. Um, so it's just kind of rough if you try to do that. Um, but yeah, I would say it's kind of like people talk about if you're playing Tekker or you're playing backline, there's sort of like these gates that you want to consider as you move on to the next phase of teching or ecoing. Um, it's the same thing here. The gates being like, if I start a T2 lab, is everybody going to be safe? While I'm building it. If I start building a fusion, is everyone going to be safe while I'm building it? Or if I'm building an advanced fusion, especially, are people going to be safe while it's going up? Because if they're not safe, then it doesn't make sense to build an advanced fusion. Instead you should be getting units or something like that. There's like things to kind of check off as you're building that stuff. I think the same thing applies here, where if you're frontline or not, or backline or not, I should say, is like, okay, how does this look? How are my allies doing? And top is doing quite well, and that might have been partly because of your sharing and your bits of help. So I think all that was probably a good idea. Um, and bottom side's doing fine, but then it's like your lane has a few issues. So like everyone's doing well except for your lane. So it's just something to consider when you do stuff like that. Whether or not to sell the lab. Um, and it's fine to sell the lab again because you have the console making these hounds. But yeah, it's just to me maybe put them back here. Um, and yeah, I'm trying to think like obviously like sharing a console and a T2 with these two guys is probably pretty significant for them, and probably pretty significant with helping them push through here more. Let's see what are they able to do. So this guy here, he's just working on a second max. This guy here, what has he got? Oh, he's actually on his fourth. Quite nice. Where's the console that you shared? Okay, so this console's doing pounds. Okay, I see. Yeah, so I would say the console definitely helped out with yellow here. I would say it's not helping out too much here with tan. Um, and I would say, maybe not during the game, but like between games, you can think about like, okay, when does it make sense to give a console? And for yellow, I don't know if you talked with yellow or not. Obviously, he knows what's up too with building the house instead of building the lab. So that's totally cool. He's in a position where he can do that. But meanwhile, this guy here, since he's going air, like it's nice to have that console, but what is he doing with it? He's just kind of assisting the lab with it. Um, so he doesn't really use it. So you could have maybe, realized that like, okay, if he's going air, there's less chance for him to use the console, properly, or I shouldn't say properly because the console has some extra build power that's nice. It's still being used. But it's not being used to the same effect as it is for yellow. So since yellow's ground, that makes more sense here. He can go into hounds while he's getting his mexes and stuff like that. But for this guy going air, that might not make sense. It might make more sense to just not give him the console and just give him the T2. So you could have maybe done that a little bit sooner. I would say if you're going to do a share like that, like I noticed that you were upgrading mexes and producing those units. But to me, try to focus on one or the other. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard because it's like you want to give them the T2 stuff like right away, but then it's like you also want your own mechs right away. And the mechs will help you get the T2 to them and stuff like that. I would, and usually, if you're upgrading your mechs, it's like sell the lab so that you can get the mechs faster and stuff like that. But of course, you're not yet because you're sharing them to them, so you're still producing out of the lab, so you don't do it. I sound like I'm talking in circles, but I got a point here. Uh, but my point is, try to do one or the other. Try to have maybe this build power over here so that it can help with all three of these mexes. And say you produce your first T2, you use it yourself because you're out of metal, and you start upgrading your mexes. You stop producing out of the lab. You don't need it yet because you want to share stuff, right? You could use all this build power here and any other additional cons around the base to assist upgrading, like 2 or 3, you get all 3 of these mexes, and then producing the consoles and the T2 for your allies. I think that would be reasonable. I don't think it would delay it by. I mean, it'll delay it by a significant amount, but like that way you're at least getting that's the metal going quicker to get those out, and then sell the labs. You can get those out sooner. Is what I'm trying to say is, um, if you got the mechs a little bit sooner. I mean, it would technically probably be around the same time. You're probably stalling when you're producing those. I'm not gonna reload the replay to look, but like I'm just saying like you could have those mexes and doing that, and then you can sell the lab, and then you'd have a nice chunk of army to get a nice chunk of hounds. And I think it would at the very least be around the same timing. It might be a little bit later, it might be a little sooner. But But yeah, alright, so this guy's eating all the metal. Luckily, he's just getting chewed on by that HLT and dies. Nice. How many corpses is that here? It's 2? Oh, he's starting to resurrect it. Okay. Interesting. Okay, this guy's eating that corpse. This guy sees that you don't have an army still. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go up there instead of down here by red where there's some tanks. Nice quick pop-up here. Help defend. I mean, it's enough tanks that they're still gonna do damage, but the pop-up's gonna help out a lot. And luckily he just leaves this guy here. Oh, nope, he gets out of the way. One hound shot, nice. Alright. Well, you're not dead. You survived. And maybe that's okay. I mean, you're still like in an okay position here. Your ally's still alive. You know, and that's not always going to be the case. But it worked out. And now you have a forward position to your hounds. So this ended up this ended up working. But given the situation, I'm surprised that it did. Like, it probably shouldn't have, but at the same time, like, you know, this guy probably didn't want to face off against the, you know, the claws and the turret and the, you know, stuff repairing it, and there's just like a lot of stuff to deal with, so he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go around. And that just, it worked out. Yeah, yellow and tan here are still pushing. Elmer, Fudd, and Roe. Yellow's here to back you up as well. They're all trying to attack the turret. That's just not correct. It's not where it was. Yeah, now this is a nice push because actually yellow's doing, or I should say, Shizato is didn't realize, I guess, what's going on. You know, like Elmer Fudd pushed up here with just a few units, and Shizato sends his whole army up there. So now yellow, you, and blue have this pushing potential right here. That's actually quite smart. I mean, obviously, you can't expect him to pull every unit to defend this, but since he did. Oh no, blue's on the other side. I'm sorry, I thought that was your ally for some reason. Blue's here to defend, but yeah, that could have been way worse if blue wasn't there. Blue was very good about seeing that coming up. Goopy. Woodland Goopy. Alright, you eat that. Oh no, this is your ally eating it. Lots of metal for him. But man, if you had lost this earlier, like, F. That means no hounds, that means you don't do anything, you gotta build a lab again. It's like, shit. Alright, so you're poking up here. About. This whole area is like in freeform. It's like there's a lot of back and forth. Either there's units or there's not units. Alright, what else you got going on here? So you're just producing, I keep wanting to call them Thors, but yeah, Jaguars. So yeah, it looks like Jaguar Hounds. A couple of Mausers, okay. Oh, I don't even have your eco on, there we go. Energy's looking a little rough. That's kind of to be expected at this point. Like once you start getting more than you know, like 5 mexes, like even when you start with really good economy for T2, you're not going to have really enough energy to produce units and, you know, continue building with your constructors and stuff. So I'd say like after 5 T2 mexes, maybe go for the fusion. Looks like it's okay. Maybe 6. I don't know. It really depends on how the wind is, right? So who knows? You're still adding on winds. But yeah, wind is not crazy good on this map. Um, Still better than a lot of other things, but it just means you're going to need a lot of winds. Like, this is not even that much. So I assume, yeah, you start fusions now. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I guess the reason why this is working out, like why your energy is so high, is because your you know, allies are floating a lot. You know, so you decide to put down a converter. I wouldn't say that you necessarily have enough for a converter, but I mean, if they're accessing that much, then I suppose why not? Um, Actually, if they're accessing that much, I would maybe consider T1 converters, just because the T2 costs that's you know, maybe like, you know, just a couple T1 converters, just because this does cost quite a bit of well, I mean, it's 380. It's really not that much energy or that much metal. I don't know. I'm just thinking about, like, you know, you could build one for as low as $1 or something that's 380 times more. But obviously, once it's done, it's like more efficient. The reason why I would suggest that is because obviously, you know, if your allies stop floating, like, you don't really have enough energy to even support one T1 converter. So in fact, you're like in the red here. So, or or not even just in the red, but quite in the red. Um, so I assume one of your allies just like finished the fusion and doesn't have the converters for it yet, or something like that. You know, like all of a sudden you're just floating a lot. I don't know. I'm not really gonna look too hard for it. T1 converters. Okay, I guess I'm gonna lie and just like keep looking. Uh, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it was the wind was high. I mean, wind is really high right now, but yours is draining, so I don't know. Maybe it's just the build power being added to this. Uh, Either way, getting your fusion. Definitely need that right now. This, although, you know, it's sort of like, you know, it's a good time. You might be saying to yourself like, oh, I could use some, you know, some Lazarus to get some Rex, resurrect stuff and whatnot. Um, Personally, I feel like it's a bit early because you're trying to produce out of a T2 lab and build a T1 lab and produce out of it while still not having a fusion. So your energy is quite low. It's just like a lot of energy you don't have. And this is with the wind at max at 14. So it's just a lot. Um, and those converters not going to do jack shit right now. And yeah, there's your fusion going up. Yeah, yellow and tan, you know, or actually tan, I guess he started producing hounds as well, so that ended up working out. I was assuming he was just going to stick with air, but I mean, this is pretty smart, using that console to do other stuff. But yeah, I feel like the console could have maybe been produced later for him or something. I don't know. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's obviously console, very good, but it just makes me wonder. These little rascals running around. Um, yeah, I don't know. I thinking about what I was saying about the whole console thing. I mean, maybe I mean, it looks like it was worth it to give it to him. So I mean, you can't even take that step out of the equation, because obviously it afforded them this big push, and arguably you could say you had a lot to do with this side winning because of the share. Uh, I would eat this lab maybe. Yeah, so here, I mean, this is something that's hard to do during the game, and it's hard to know. Um, but personally, if you're trying to build a bigger thing, such as a fusion, try to put as much build power on it as possible while it's being built. Like, pause the factory, pause this, maybe even sell this. I would definitely consider selling this. Um, you know, stop building all this other random stuff. I mean, obviously this is not random. It's nice to have that, but um, To me, just like trying to get the thing faster to help, especially if it's an economy thing, trying to get it faster so that you can just have it sooner and use it sooner. Um, because right now you're spending a lot of metal on various things. Again, I think your energy is doing okay because you are getting, I don't know, I believe that they're sharing a lot, but maybe not. Or is it yellow sharing a lot? Uh, yeah, yellow sharing a bit. Let's see, red's not, orange, no, 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 no. Huh, that's quite odd to me. Okay, well it is draining now as wind goes down. Um, yeah, it looked very odd to me because the negative gain was so high compared to your income. But that might have had to do with your metal or something too. I don't know. I'm just like I'm a wee bit tired. It's end of the day, so I'm kind of like talking in circles and yada yada. This is actually the third review I'm doing today, so I'm just kind of drained a little bit. Uh, but to go on what I was saying, like so to me, there's this whole concept of um, it's nice to have your build power kind of spread out, right? Your build turrets, I should say, spread out so that they can assist, a wider area of stuff being built. But to me, when it comes to bigger stuff, whether it be a T2 factory, whether it be your first fusion, or I should say first few fusions or something, um, I would argue, um, to have, whoops, a cleaner like base layout. Um, and it's kind of hard to do in the moment and stuff for sure. But I would argue, well, I mean, there's more than one thing I want to talk about here. But if you put them together, or you don't even have to put them together, right? Like, for example, you got these two here, you got this one here, and this one here, and this one here. While only these two can assist, or maybe these three can assist this fusion, all six of them can assist the lab, or seven of them. I can't count apparently. Um, so to me, the idea is like, yeah, it's okay to spread them out like this, but then have your fusion nearby so that they can all assist the fusion. So you get your first, not that you need to do that for every fusion, but I'm just saying for like the first one, because that usually means that your energy is in a very low state, before it comes out, and you want to get it sooner than later and not be building other shit at the same time. Now it's fine to have little other minor projects going on. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying like, um, if you're constantly assisting guys out of the lab and that's eating a lot of your metal and or energy, then all of a sudden this fusion's coming out later, when it could be sooner. So to me, it's always a matter of looking at the fronts, looking at the state of the board, and seeing, okay, my allies are here, are doing very, very well. I don't see really any enemy units that can contest me. I just see three of these bulls. And, I think you have a pop-up back here. Yeah, you have a pop-up, you got a commander. Um, I wouldn't really worry about three bulls in this position. Um, so to me, it's a good time to, boost out your fusion as quickly as possible. And you can only do that if your turrets can all help build it. So it's like all help build the fusion. If you need units all of a sudden, they can all go back to assisting the lab. And that way it's kind of a neat thing of like you can check you can, um, and this is just like a general concept. I'm not trying to say just for the fusion. I'm just trying to say for anything. So like even your first few advanced solars or first few mechs or something, like having the build power to say, look, I want to assist these mexes to build them faster, or if I get pushed, I want to be able to build units as quickly as possible. And that way your turrets, if they're able to do both, they can flip-flop to what you actually need at that moment. And if you're feeling very secure, then you sell the lab instead, to get that extra metal or not instead, but as well, to get the extra metal, to get the T2 mexes quicker and things like that. I think you understand these concepts a bit, but just to me, this could be cleaned up a little bit. Um, I'm mostly saying all that just for, to put it all together. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention was if, I mean, obviously, having these turrets out here helps you build these wins earlier. Build them a lot faster. You had your T1, um, your T1 lab over here at that time, um, which is a fine position for it. But I would actually argue, given the state, your units have to go down here to get out here, right? I would actually argue to put let's get rid of all that again, to put the turrets around here, or just in this general vicinity, so that your first view I'm talking about, your general vicinity, to help the T1 lab, and then when you sell the T1 lab, you can put the T2 lab out here, just to have it a bit closer. It's a very minor thing, but that would be a little bit closer to the battle. It's not as drastic as having it on the front line, but just a small little minor thing. I don't know why it keeps making that clicking sound. Is that just what it... Does the draw tool just make sound now? Is that... I don't know, I feel like I'm going crazy here. But yeah, just the move stuff, to me, starting to think about just where you place your buildings, and end up being a bigger and bigger thing. Now it's like kind of a minor detail, but again, as you climb the ranks, little minor details are going to be a bigger and bigger thing. They can be what stands you out from the crowd. Perform better than the other people. I feel like Goopy should actually be doing this review. Goopy's a lot better than either of us. I wonder what he would say about all this. Is I guess what I'm getting at. Anyways, you're getting some more fusion or more converters producing that. You got these guys going. Yeah, I mean, I suppose your metal is not terrible, so it's kind of okay to do this. It just, to me, it ends up feeling like a lot if you're also trying to produce a bunch of fusions and stuff. So you do this and then your anti-nuke. Definitely late on the anti-nuke, but I don't think anyone's going to be nuking, so it's totally fine. Alright, lots of Mazers. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much over. Even send in just a very small handful of Jaguars. Okay, they find some damage. Not a ton, but there wasn't a ton there to begin with. Now it's just rolling in. Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I mean, not that this is really going, well, I guess there is some fighters around. I was gonna say, when the game starts looking like you're winning, you might want to consider all the things that your opponents could do to get back in the game. Whether it be nukes or bombing run or whatever, I would just say, maybe spend a little bit more on that stuff if you wanted to play safe. But at the same time, it's you're not going to cover your entire team, right? And it's the bombers don't have to target you for them to do significant damage. So I don't know. But yeah, there is some fighters around, so I mean, I don't know. I wonder if other people have gotten any anti-air. Not really. At least I don't see any. Looks like there's a resign. And GG. So I'm trying to think of the takeaways here. Because I didn't take notes whatsoever on this game, because I just wanted to do it on the fly and whatever. I'm sure there's stuff I missed or didn't explain that deeply or whatever. So yeah, I talked a lot about your opponent having a sizable army here, or opponents, I should say, Your ally didn't have like a ton of units. He had a couple, but not a ton, mainly because he got a gauntlet. And then you decided to get T2, which ended up being totally fine, especially since your, um, since they completely ignored this area. They ran past instead of engaging with it. But if they hadn't, that would have been a big deal, and you would have lost that and had to rebuild a lab to even start producing units. That was a big turning point. If they had done that, you would have been in a much rougher spot. Yellow, I think, would have had to help you out a lot more. And, I don't think this push would have happened quite how it did. Um, how is that still there? Okay. Um, but yeah, luckily, by the time you got to your base, like, he didn't have that much left, and Dragon's Claw took care of it. Um, but yeah, I think you just want to maybe start thinking about, how much of danger that actually was, and like how that could have gone so differently, and maybe just gone with T2 a little bit differently. Instead of um, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to say that because it's sort of like the sharing all those units helped a lot. It just meant that your lab got sold so late, your mexes got upgraded so late that all of a sudden, uh, by the time you're starting to produce hounds, like it's very minimal, and he's like running up to your base. Um, So, to me, it's, while obviously that helped a shit ton during this game, it's definitely put you in a lot of danger, and I guess it's just something to consider. But yeah, also the ordering of this stuff, like you had, you're upgrading your mexes, you were, producing consoles and C2 for your allies and all that, and I feel like if you had um, put your build power more towards your advanced extractors and then gotten the extra T2 and consoles for your allies. It would have delayed their push and everything a little bit, and that might have made all the difference. But like, I guess to me at the same time, um, propelling yourself with the metal would have been a big deal. You would have like, once you started the T2 and consoles, like you would have gotten them out faster, and gone on to possibly making the hounds a little bit faster, um, just from having the extra metal. That extra metal bump is a very big deal. Um, so to me, that is a big thing I want to, I just want to highlight is that and the battle here. Um, yeah, I think those are the two main takeaways from this. Um, and there's like minor things in the early game where you had your scouts just kind of chilling when they could have been doing stuff like running around some more or you know coming back here to defend. Because yeah, um, not a lot of people use this lake, you know, so you don't have to sit here in front of it to defend it. Um, or at least not with four of them. Uh, like to me, having them a little bit closer to home, if you're trying to defend, to me it would be a little bit safer. Um, yeah, I think that about does it. It's little tiny, little reordering things. Um, I guess just to even just sum it up even further into three like you know things, three very quick, succinct things. Um, One, I would work on how you build or your build placement. Like where are your turrets? Where is your factory? Like what is the relationship of your buildings? And obviously during the game, it's it gets hard to do it. You just kind of go into, or at least for me, I go into a mode of just like I'll just plop it down here, plop it down there, do this, do that. But you might as well try to get yourself in the habit of positioning a little bit more. Because while these, like, even if you don't do what I was saying with like putting your turrets down here so that you can do things like assist the fusion and assist the T2 over here and stuff like that, These three turrets are kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like they got build power all the way up to the lake, but nothing's being built at the lake, and probably there's a good chance nothing will be built at the lake. So these could definitely be like back here or something. No, just like little things to keep. Uh, you say you got your wind up here, and you got your you got your important mexes that get upgraded as soon as T2 comes out. You got your fusion you could put back here somewhere, but like if all your turrets could hit the fusion, if all your turrets could hit the T2 lab, or yeah, I mean your T2 lab's up here. I was suggesting maybe put it down here. You could flop your build power to whatever is needed. So yeah, one, maybe like think about rearranging your base so that it flows a little bit better in terms of build power. Two, little reordering things to possibly get your mexes sooner so that the console and the T2 builder um, I mean, like it's like just so that you're not floating quite as much metal, or not floating, but you have a little bit more metal to work with to get those out and to be able to get your hounds out. So I think that would speed it up slightly. So little things like that. And then three, just having that map awareness, you know, to figure out, can I get T2 or not? And it looked like it worked this time, but I feel like it isn't always going to work in that situation. Um, like the exact same situation, if in the hands of somebody else, it could have gone very badly for you. So I hope all that makes sense. But yeah, you definitely did a lot of good stuff this game by giving T2 and console and stuff. That definitely helped out a lot. That big, I guess they're all dead now, but there was such a big ball of hounds from both the players because of your console. Um, yeah, a lot of other. I mean, most things look pretty damn good. Um, oh yeah, there's minor things like the HLT. Um, I feel like two beamers would have helped a lot more in that situation. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It's kind of cool that you resurrected the commander. You can do some stuff with that now. But yeah, that wraps it up. I think this game's over. I think they tried to resign, didn't go through. Oh, it did go through. Okay, well there's the resign. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope you guys got something from this replay, and I hope you, above all else, enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.